Due to copyright, I can't publish many audiobooks on YouTube. At our audiobook novel service, we offer access to over 300 full novels from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, Wuxia, and more, all in high-quality audio format. Each novel is available with a one-time payment only. No subscriptions, no monthly payment, and no ads. Payments via PayPal or Ko-fi. To browse the full list of available novels, message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out our full catalog on Discord. Chapter 231, The Iron Veil Expedition. Ethan sorted through the remaining skill books, pulling out those for rogues and marksmen. After picking out the useful ones and tossing the duplicates back, he handed the stack to Slashblade. Give these to Celia and have her store them in the guild vault. Anyone who needs them can exchange them for contribution points, Ethan instructed. Skyblade, ever the eager one, chimed in, Ethan, when are we heading to the Iron Veil Mountains? Ethan thought for a moment before answering, probably in the next couple of days. All right, we'll get ready, Slashblade said, nodding. But Ethan shook his head. This time, I'm going alone. Not happening, Slashblade immediately protested. Yeah, no way, Seraph Warrior added. Are you saying we're not good enough? Skyblade blurted out, his tone a mix of hurt and defiance. Ethan paused, touched by their concern. He smiled and patted Skyblade on the shoulder. It's not that I don't trust you guys. I'm not even sure I'll find what I'm looking for. Let me scout it out first. If I find something, I'll call you in. The three of them exchanged skeptical looks. They knew Ethan well enough to know that even if he did find something, he probably wouldn't call them. But they also knew better than to argue with him when he had that determined look in his eyes. To lighten the mood, Skyblade suddenly suggested, hey, once the game goes into its rest period, let's go out for a nice meal, yeah? Ethan raised an eyebrow, a teasing grin on his face. By nice meal, you mean all-you-can-eat buffet and burrito, right? Skyblade scratched his head, looking sheepish. Aren't those nice? The group collectively sighed. Skyblade's idea of fine dining was about as refined as his tanking skills. After saying his goodbyes, Ethan left the guild hall. Once outside, he sent Slashblade and Skyblade each a message containing coordinates, NPC names, and activation methods. These were the trigger points for two special class quests, the Iron Guardian for shield tanks and the Divine Oracle for holy priests. Ethan knew that quests like these in Ethereal weren't just about knowing where to go. They often required specific conditions or even being chosen by the system to activate. He told them to go and try their luck, but he didn't hold out much hope. With that taken care of, Ethan felt a sense of relief. There was still one thing left on his to-do list. Now that he'd hit level 45, it was time to take a risk and head to that place. But first, he needed to test whether he could transfer the Wishbound relic to his rogue alt. If it worked, he could proceed without worry. However, the rogue's cooldown period wasn't over yet, so Ethan decided to kill some time wandering around the city. He was considering heading to the market district to browse for deals when a system notification popped up. Ding. System alert. Incoming external call. Unknown number. Accept? Accept, Ethan replied. Hello? A sweet, melodic voice came through the line. Ethan was momentarily taken aback. The voice was unfamiliar, yet there was something oddly familiar about it. Who is this? He asked cautiously. The voice on the other end sounded slightly annoyed. Wow, Mr. Busy, you really do have a short memory, huh? I've called you over a dozen times and this is the first time you've picked up. Evelyn? Ethan finally placed the voice. He'd been so focused on grinding in the Soulforge abyss that he'd completely forgotten about her. He'd only saved Leroy's number, so her call had come up as unknown. Yeah, it's me, Evelyn replied. We're leaving Ember City soon and I wanted to see you before we go. I also need to give you an IOU. What do you mean? Ethan asked, confused. Well, the 500,000 you transferred to us, we're not going to take it for free. If we manage to survive and earn enough money, we'll pay you back. Ethan couldn't help but laugh at her words. That sounds way too grim. Where are you planning to go? And what about Jade? Did everything get sorted out? How's she doing? He fired off a string of questions, but Evelyn hesitated before answering. Is it not something you can talk about? Ethan asked, sensing her reluctance. It's not that, Evelyn replied. It's just, do you play Ethereal? What's your ID? Let's talk in the game. Her suggestion piqued Ethan's curiosity. Sure, send me your ID. I'm actually in the game right now. I'll add you. Ethan wasn't keen on revealing his own ID. Even if he did, he doubted Evelyn would believe him. All right, my ID is Whispering Flora, Evelyn said. Got it. I'll add you. Log in and accept the request. Ethan quickly pulled up the friend list and entered her character name. Ding. System alert, your friend request to Whispering Flora has been accepted. The moment he hung up the call, the request was approved. Whispering Flora. Not a druid, it's me, Ethan. Ding. System alert, Whispering Flora has sent you a video call request. Ethan accepted the call and Evelyn's face appeared on the holographic screen. Her eyes were wide with disbelief. Behind her, two more heads popped into view, Leroy and Ryan. In Ethereal, character appearances could be slightly adjusted, but unless you specifically changed the settings, your friends would see your real-life face. Of course, some players, especially those who were less confident about their looks, would tweak their appearance to look more attractive. Ryan was the first to react. Holy crap, it really is you. Leroy stammered, DD Druid God. Ethan smiled. Where are you guys? I'll come find you. Evelyn quickly gave him their location, and after ending the call, Ethan headed to the nearest teleportation array. He was about to revisit a place he hadn't been to in a while. The coordinates Evelyn provided led him to Larson Basin, the very place where he had once unleashed a toxic flood that wiped out over 7,000 members of Blade Syndicate. The water had long since receded, and the area had returned to its former state as a popular grinding spot. Ethan was surprised to find that Evelyn, Leroy, and Ryan were only level 19. He had no idea when they had started playing Ethereal, but their progress was painfully slow. As he approached the coordinates, he spotted the trio struggling to take down a level 20 monster. Their class choices were interesting, to say the least. His attacks were slow but powerful, each swing landing with a heavy thud. Ryan, the middle brother, had gone for a fire mage. While fire magic was undeniably strong, it was also the slowest casting school among mages. Most players avoided it in the early game due to its sluggish pace. And then there was Evelyn, who had chosen to play as a disciplined priest. Disciplined priests were known for their strength in the late game, particularly in PvP, where they were considered one of the best healing classes. However, they were notoriously difficult to play in the early stages, and very few people bothered with them. Watching the three of them fight the monster was almost painful. Leroy's slow swings, Ryan's delayed spell casting, and Evelyn's frantic attempts to keep everyone alive made for a chaotic scene. Ethan couldn't help but shake his head. You guys really picked the hardest road, huh? Chapter 232, Disciplined Priest Dilemma. The problem with the Disciplined Priest specialization was that it offered almost no damage output in the early game, and its healing capabilities were practically non-existent. The way it healed teammates was by dealing damage. A percentage of the damage inflicted would then be converted into healing. Because of this, no team in their right mind would take on a Disciplined Priest during the early stages. They were seen as deadweight. During the starter phase, most priests who tried the Disciplined path quickly switched to Holy or Shadow specializations as soon as they unlocked their first form quest. Holy priests focused on healing, while Shadow priests leaned into damage dealing. This left the Disciplined path severely underpopulated, and by the time large-scale wars broke out in the late game, guilds and teams were desperate for Disciplined priests. But they were nearly impossible to find. You couldn't just delete your character and start over, and with most of the real-world population already in Ethereal, there was no way to rebuild the player base. Ethan watched from a distance as the trio struggled with their monster. He couldn't help but feel a little sorry for them. Transforming into his owl form, he cast Moonfire and Sunburn, two debuff skills that dealt damage over time. The monster, which they had only managed to whittle down to half health, was instantly killed. The three of them froze, staring at the now-dead monster. They turned to see Ethan, back in his human form, walking toward them. Instant kill? Ryan muttered, clearly impressed. I can't believe you're actually the Druid God, Evelyn said, her eyes wide. Ethan scratched the back of his head, unsure how to respond. Well, since I'm free today, how about I help you guys level up? He offered, trying to break the awkwardness. Plus, his rogue alt needed some leveling too. That'd be great, Evelyn said, her face lighting up. Ding. System alert, Whispering Flora has invited you to join their party. Ethan accepted the invitation and checked out the other two members' names. He almost burst out laughing. Leroy's character name was My Brother is Afrod, and Ryan's was My Elder Brother is Adog. Your names are... Ethan started, then stopped himself. He wasn't one to talk, his own character name wasn't exactly a masterpiece. He summoned his rogue alt but didn't add it to the party. Instead, he had it follow them in stealth mode, just close enough to leech experience. Evelyn, where are you guys planning to go? And why couldn't you talk about it over the phone? Ethan asked as they walked. He casually flicked out instant cast spells, effortlessly killing level 20 mobs with a single Moonfire debuff. The four of them left a trail of corpses in their wake, drawing the attention of other players in the area. Player, whoa, who's that all guy? Player, no idea, but man, I wish I had someone to power level me like that. Player, yeah, the elites in our guild never bother with us. Player, they're too busy leveling themselves. Who's got time to carry noobs? Player, that all guy, could he be the Druid God? He's already level 45. Player, no way, stop making stuff up. Player, honestly, at this point, if someone told me the Druid God was level 100, I wouldn't even be surprised. The surrounding players nodded in agreement. The Druid God was a legend, and nothing he did was surprising anymore. If anything, the real news would be if someone managed to kill him or catch up to his level. Evelyn, why couldn't you just say all this over the phone earlier? Ethan asked, casually casting spells as they walked. Because in the age of big data, privacy is an illusion, Leroy cut in. Yeah, what he said, Ryan added with a shrug. Evelyn nodded. A friend of mine in the industry told me that Ethereal is the only platform completely off the grid, no surveillance, no data tracking. That's why the government hates it. She glanced at Ethan. You probably already know this, but that's also why the US in-game isn't actually called the US. It's Dragonspire for legal and political reasons. The devs had to rename it to dodge all the regulations trying to shut them down. So, anything we say or do here can't be monitored, at least for now. Evelyn had said for now, but Ethan knew that for now could stretch indefinitely. Ethereal was created by Morzan, a figure shrouded in mystery. It wasn't a product of Earth's technology but something far beyond, a fusion of advanced science and arcane principles, a realm governed by its own laws. After chatting for a while, Ethan asked, "So, what are your plans for the future?" The question seemed to dampen their spirits. Leroy was the first to respond. "We're taking it one step at a time. We're planning to head to the Iron Vale Mountains first, then figure things out from there." The Iron Vale Mountains? Ethan stopped in his tracks, turning to look at Leroy. "Why are you going there?" His tone was urgent, and the trio exchanged puzzled glances, wondering why Ethan was so worked up about their destination. "We're going for the decennial ranking tournament hosted by the Noble 8 Lineages," Evelyn explained. Ethan's jaw dropped. He was too stunned to speak, though internally he was buzzing with excitement. You don't have to look so shocked," Evelyn said, noticing his reaction. "Wait, you know where the Silverwood family's territory is?" Ethan's voice trembled slightly. Evelyn frowned. "Of course we do. Our grandfather took us there 10 years ago. It's not exactly a secret." "Not a secret?" Ethan was baffled. "Yeah, the locations of the other 7 families' hidden territory are common knowledge in the supernatural world. They just don't open their gates to outsiders most of the time. Pretty much everyone in the supernatural community knows about them." Ethan felt a mix of relief and frustration. He'd been searching for this information for so long, and it turned out to be common knowledge among those in the know. He'd been stumbling around like a blind man in a maze. "Tomorrow, I'll come find you." "Take me with you," Ethan said, trying to sound calm. "Why?" All 3 of them asked in unison. To broaden my horizons?" Ethan replied awkwardly. They clearly didn't buy it, but since Ethan didn't seem willing to elaborate, they didn't press further. Evelyn looked like she wanted to say more but ultimately stayed silent. Ethan pretended not to notice and continued obliterating every monster in their path. As they chatted about trivial matters, Ethan invited them to join Renegade Alliance. He also sent a message to Slash Blade, letting him know that the 3 newcomers were the Chase siblings. After a while, Leroy kept glancing around, muttering something to Ryan. Finally, he turned to Ethan. "Ethan, do you feel like there's a rogue following us?" Ethan's eyes flicked toward his rogue alt, which was standing about 20 meters away. How could Leroy sense it? Even with detection gear, he shouldn't be able to pick up on it from that distance. There was only one explanation. "Do you have a hidden talent?" Ethan asked, his curiosity piqued. "A hidden talent? What's that?" Leroy looked confused. Ethan hesitated, realizing Leroy was a complete novice when it came to game mechanics. Do you have any skills or attributes that increase your ability to detect stealth?" He rephrased. "Detect stealth, you mean this?" Leroy shared a skill link in the party chat. "My brother is a fraud, skill link, War Stomper, exclusive." Ethan's eyes widened. Chapter 233, Hidden Paths. Ethan stared at Leroy, utterly speechless. "You're not a greatsword warrior?" he asked, his tone laced with disbelief. Leroy raised an eyebrow, then sighed deeply, his expression turning somber. "When I created my character, I chose the warrior class. At the time, I was planning to play as a shield tank. But when I logged into the game, I got stuck with this class called War Stomper. I can only use 2-handed giant weapons, nothing else. It's so frustrating." He finished with a look of resignation, then pointed at Ryan and added, "And Ryan here?" He picked mage, but ended up as a flame soul binder. Ethan's eyes widened in shock, his pupils trembling slightly. He couldn't help but glance at Evelyn and ask, "What about you? What's your class?" "Priest," Evelyn replied casually. Ethan let out a long breath of relief. At least she wasn't a hidden class. That would have been too much. Still, as a disciplined priest, a rare variant chosen by maybe 1 in a million players, she was practically a hidden class in her own right. What were the odds of running into 2 hidden classes and a disciplined priest in one day? Was this some kind of twisted luck? "Would you guys be interested in joining Renegade Alliance's elite team?" Ethan asked, his tone serious. "Elite team?" Evelyn asked, curiosity flickering in her eyes. The 3 of them were complete newbies to the game. Before this, their gaming experience was limited to Snake, Match, 3 puzzles, and other casual mobile games. They'd only joined Ethereal out of curiosity, seeing how everyone else was playing it. Ethan nodded firmly. "Yeah, the elite of the elite. You'd be teaming up with Victor and Leo, but you'd need to sign a contract." Truth be told, Ethan's so-called elite of the elite team was still just an idea. Right now, it only had 6 members: Skyblade, Slash Blade, Seraph Warrior, Meatball, and himself. If Lila came back, they'd have a full squad. But forming a full 30-man team was still a long way off. If Skyblade and Slash Blade could also switch to hidden classes, and with the addition of the Chase siblings, the team would at least have a solid foundation. They could fill in the gaps with some skilled players and start tackling dungeons or leading PvP assaults. But a full team of hidden classes? That was practically impossible. Ethan couldn't tell if it was his luck or theirs that was off the charts. All 3 of them had joined the game together, and 2 of them had landed hidden classes right off the bat. The War Stomper class, for instance, had a unique skill that significantly boosted perception. Stealth classes would have a hard time sneaking up on Leroy. No wonder Ethan's rogue alt had been detected from over 20 meters away. The Chase siblings didn't respond to Ethan's offer right away. Instead, they exchanged uneasy glances. "What's wrong?" Ethan asked, noticing their hesitation. Evelyn looked at her brothers before speaking slowly. "We were actually planning to compete in the decennial ranking tournament. We were hoping to secure a spot as low-ranking members in one of the Noble 8 lineages. Even if it's just a minor role, it would mean we wouldn't have to worry about retaliation from the dissenters anymore. So, Ethan frowned, puzzled. But that doesn't stop you from entering Ethereal, does it? The hidden territories of secret organizations and noble lineages are kept in their original state. I've heard they don't even have electricity, let alone internet access. So, we might not be able to. As she spoke, Ethan suddenly understood. So that was the issue. Hidden territories? Pfft. There's nowhere Ethereal can't reach. Suddenly, Morzen's voice echoed in Ethan's mind, breaking a long silence. Ethan was caught off guard by the sudden intrusion, but he didn't comment on it. Instead, he turned back to Evelyn and her brothers. Just bring your VR headsets with you. Maybe it'll work. Even as he said this, Ethan felt a twinge of doubt. The ethereal VR headsets needed to be charged after all. If there was no electricity in those hidden territories, even if the game's signal could reach them, they'd still be out of luck. Well, we're not even sure if we can find a way into one of the Noble 8 lineages. If we can't, we'll just stick with you, Leroy said. Ethan was about to nod when Ryan chimed in. Honestly, with Evelyn's disguise skills and my cloaking charms, we could hide anywhere without a problem. You're just being a coward. Who are you calling a coward? Leroy shot back, glaring at him. Look at the name above my head. Ryan retorted, pointing at the floating tag above him. Both of you, stop fighting. Ryan's right, but Leroy's not wrong either. If we can get into one of the lineages, even just as low-ranking members, it would be a good thing, Evelyn interjected, pulling her brothers apart. Ethan stepped forward, trying to diffuse the tension. Anyway, wait here for me. If you're bored, go kill some mobs. I'll head down for a bit, and when I come back, I'll take you to a high-level zone to grind. By now, they had reached the center of Larson Basin, where a massive lake stretched out before them. Being here reminded Ethan of the last time he dived into the lake. There had been several locked chests, including 2 dark gold chests and 1 pseudo-divine chest in the final chamber. He'd been meaning to come back ever since he got the key from the Mad Engineer, but the prismatic stone quest had delayed him. Now that he was here, he might as well check it out. The only question was whether someone had beaten him to it. He doubted any rogue player had reached master-level lockpicking, but you never knew, some players were just built differently. With that thought, Ethan distracted the siblings, and with Evelyn's mediation, the 2 brothers exchanged a final glare before calming down. Ethan bid them farewell and dove into the water. Not long after, just as Evelyn and her brothers had finished killing a few mobs, Ethan resurfaced. It had only taken him about 10 minutes. As it turned out, the spring was still there, but it no longer led to the secret chamber he'd discovered before. The map must have changed after he took the 2 divine tier items and released Lila's pet. The special dungeon had disappeared. He'd wondered why the lake in Larson Basin hadn't dried up after he'd taken the Frostbound Reverie and the Infernal Core, breaking the water cycle. Now he realized the spring had simply diverted elsewhere, and the current water source was just ordinary groundwater. The pseudo-divine chest, the dark gold chests, and the pile of gold chests were all gone. After surfacing, Ethan called out to the siblings. Just then, a system notification popped up. Ding! System notification, Little Horn has sent you a video call request. Huh? Accept. The video call connected and a blank white screen appeared. No one was visible. Little Horn's voice came through, coughing violently. Cough, dude, you've really screwed me over, cough, cough. Ethan immediately understood what was happening. The guy had actually believed him and hidden in that cave. But now someone was trying to smoke him out like a rat. Chapter 234, Slow Train to Ashwick. The sound of violent coughing echoed through the video call, so intense it sounded like Little Horn was about to cough up a lung. Ethan felt a pang of guilt. He'd forgotten to tell the guy to bring an engineering-grade gas mask. Cough, just hang in there a bit longer. As long as you don't come out, that divine tier scroll is yours, Ethan said, coughing awkwardly himself as he tried to reassure Little Horn. Little Horn's voice crackled through the call, desperate. Dude, there's still 6 hours left. I've got something to take care of. Ethan made up an excuse and quickly ended the call. After hanging up, Ethan regrouped with the Chase siblings and headed back to the city. He paid for a group teleport and they arrived in Springhaven. From there, they made a beeline for the Life Greenhouse. At level 45, Ethan didn't even need to use arcane inscriptions in this grinding zone. He'd pull a group of mobs, then unleash a combo of Cleaving Tempest and Primal Fury. Wave after wave of monsters fell, and the experience points for Ethan's rogue alt and the Chase siblings shot up like a rocket. 4 hours later, Evelyn turned to Ethan. We need to log off. We've got to get ready for our trip. Ethan checked the time, it was already past 6 a.m. Ethereal World hadn't entered its rest period yet. Little Horn still had about 2 to 3 hours before the Divine Tier Scroll's ownership would be confirmed. That meant Ethereal World would continue running for another 24 hours without a rest period. Ethan had originally planned to wait until the rest period to head to Ironvale Mountains. That way, he could use the downtime to prepare more for the Silverwood family situation. But the Chase siblings had already bought their train tickets, so there was no helping it. All right, wait for me. I'll be there soon. Ethan replied. Got it, Evelyn said before logging off. Ethan quickly briefed Leo and the others, then logged out of Ethereal himself. The moment he stepped out of the VR capsule, a wave of hunger hit him like a truck. The system that monitored his body's satiety levels had been buzzing for days, but Ethan had ignored it, surviving on a single cup of instant noodles. Now he felt dizzy and weak, his legs barely able to support him. He grabbed a nutrient pack from the side, bit it open, and chugged the contents. He hated these things. They were supposed to replenish your body's needs quickly, but they tasted like toothpaste and did nothing to curb hunger. Still, he had no choice, his legs were too weak to walk, so he had to make do. Once he'd recovered a bit, Ethan rushed downstairs, raided the fridge, and shoveled whatever he could find into his mouth. After wolfing down the food, he grabbed his pre-packed hiking gear and headed out the door. He hailed a taxi and made his way to the Chase family's mansion. By 8 a.m. Ethan and the Chase siblings were finally boarding the train to Ashwick. To his dismay, the three of them had opted for the slowest, cheapest option, a third-rate cross-city rail. Ethan had no choice but to buy a last-minute ticket to join them. The upside of the train, if there was one, was that it was slow, painfully slow. Once on board, Ethan squeezed into a window seat next to Leroy. Across from them sat Evelyn with Ryan on the aisle. As soon as they settled in, Ethan pulled his ethereal VR headset out of his backpack. Before boarding, he checked the schedule. This train would take a grueling 9.5 hours to get from Ember City to Ashwick. And knowing these old trains, it would probably be delayed at every stop. With nothing to do on the train, Ethan figured he might as well log back into Ethereal. He wasn't the only one with that idea, many passengers had already donned their VR headsets. You guys should log in too. Let's keep leveling up, Ethan said, eager to boost their levels. The top players had already broken through level 30 and the level 35 team dungeons were about to open. If they wanted to tackle the expert level dungeons, they'd need the Chase siblings to be ready. Leroy hesitated, glancing around. Is it safe? Maybe you guys go ahead. I'll stay back and keep watch. Ethan couldn't help but laugh. Leroy was either overly cautious or just plain paranoid. Just then, the train conductor came by to check tickets. Ethan stopped him and asked, "Do you have any sleeper cabins available?" "One with 4 beds." "Yes, we do," the conductor replied. "We'll upgrade to a sleeper cabin," Ethan said, paying for 4 tickets. He then dragged the bewildered siblings to the sleeper car. Once inside, Ethan locked the door behind them and turned to Leroy. "There. Safe enough for you now." Ethan couldn't understand why the three of them, who were clearly not short on money, insisted on living like this. What he didn't know was that after Dr. Aldrich disappeared, the siblings had nearly resorted to scavenging through garbage for food. Their lives had been even harder than Ethan's past struggles. At least he'd managed to scrape by with enough to eat. But the Chase siblings, having grown up with Dr. Aldrich, had no survival skills beyond their innate abilities. They'd been poor and hungry for so long that even after Ethan gave them $500,000, they couldn't shake their old habits. Once they logged into the game, Ethan wasted no time. He was no longer satisfied with the level 45 grinding zone and moved straight to level 50 mobs. With the higher level enemies, the Chase siblings and Ethan's rogue alt leveled up even faster. 9 hours later, the Chase siblings had all reached level 29, while Ethan's rogue alt had soared to level 31. Ethan sighed inwardly. Before Ethereal introduced its catch-up mechanics, leveling was painfully slow. Even though he'd been grinding level 45 to 50 mobs with them, mobs that gave massive experience for their level, they'd only gained 10 levels. Ethan forgot that he was splitting experience 3 ways, so it wasn't as fast as when he soloed. Still, it was impressive. In just 14 to 15 hours of grinding at the Life Greenhouse, they'd gained 10 levels. Even guild leaders like Marcus Skaner didn't get that kind of treatment. Back when Marcus was leveling from 19 to 29, it took him a full month. Ethan had done it in half a day. Now, Marcus was only level 34 and Ethan's rogue alt was almost catching up. If Ethan dared to complain about the leveling speed in public, the entire server would probably drown him in curses regardless of his reputation as the druid god. After a bit more grinding, Ethan felt it was time to log off and wait for the train to arrive at the station. Once they got off the train, Ethan asked, "So, where to now?" "We head to West Mountain. After climbing up, we'll hike south into the Iron Vale Mountains," Leroy explained. By the time they reached West Mountain, it was already past 9 p.m. The tourist area was closed, but Leroy led them around the perimeter, finding a gentler slope to ascend. Ethan followed without question. Once they reached the top, Leroy glanced around and said, "We're going to pick up the pace now." "Ha!" Ethan blinked in confusion. Before he could react, Leroy transformed, dropping onto all fours. With a burst of speed, he shot forward like a bolt of lightning. Ryan shrugged, pulled out 2 runic parchments, and slapped them onto his legs. A swirling vortex of air enveloped his feet. "Try to keep up," Evelyn said with a grin as she jumped onto Ryan's back. Ryan took off, his legs moving like spinning wheels, and in the blink of an eye, they disappeared from Ethan's sight. Chapter 235, Into the Wild. The Chase siblings were fast, but Ethan just smiled. He activated his travel form and extended his soul sense, locking onto their positions and direction. With a burst of speed, he took off after them. The sudden acceleration almost sent him crashing into a tree. Using travel form in the real world was noticeably faster than the last time he'd tried it, and he hadn't quite adjusted to the speed. After a quick correction, he began chasing Ryan, who was carrying Evelyn on his back. 30 seconds later, Ethan caught up to Ryan, who stared at him wide-eyed. Ethan waved as he passed, then pulled up alongside Leroy, matching his pace. You. Leroy started to say, but his words were swallowed by the wind. Ethan couldn't make out what he was saying, but he knew they were all shocked by his speed. Even he was impressed. Travel form was ridiculously fast now. If he'd had this kind of speed back then, he could have easily dealt with the rubber man without Celeste having to save him. They ran through the forest for 3 hours straight, and by the time they stopped it was around 1 a.m. They were deep in the untamed wilderness of the Iron Vale Mountains. Although the terrain seemed flat, Ethan could tell they'd been gradually gaining elevation. Leroy signaled to Ethan and gradually came to a stop. Once he did, he shifted back to his human form, gasping for air. It was clear his stamina was nearly spent. Ryan, still carrying Evelyn, caught up moments later, looking completely unfazed. What's wrong? Already out of steam? He teased. Huff, huff, you little shit, try running without those things. Leroy shot back between breaths. Ryan set Evelyn down and rolled his eyes. Yeah, no. I don't have 4 legs like you, so why wouldn't I use my charms? He then turned to Ethan, his curiosity piqued. Well, 4 legs can't even keep up with 2. Looks like Big Brother's really lost his edge. Thwack. A pack of compressed biscuits smacked Ryan in the head. You're so quiet in public, but the moment we're alone, you can't stop running your mouth. Evelyn scolded. Ow. After all I've done carrying you this whole way, this is how you repay me. Ryan complained, rubbing his head. Oh, please. You were carrying me, but I was carrying 3 bags. I felt like a squished sandwich. Evelyn shot back. And your bony shoulders were digging into me the whole time. Ugh. Ethan's eyes flicked toward Evelyn's chest. She was dressed in a tight-fitting outfit with a chest binder, and if it weren't for her face, most people would mistake her for a man. Well, that's on you. You've got built-in cushions, but nope, gotta flatten everything out instead. No wonder you're in pain, he thought. Ethan deactivated travel form and pulled some food out of his backpack. He hadn't eaten properly in days. After leaving the VR capsule, he'd raided the fridge for whatever cold leftovers he could find. By the time he met up with the Chase siblings in the morning, they'd already eaten. Then on the train, he'd logged back into the game without eating again. Right now, Ethan felt like he could devour an entire cow. Ethan's mind wandered back to the game where Leo had mentioned wanting to eat something hearty. He couldn't help but salivate at the thought. A buffet with endless grilled meat or a burrito sounded perfect right now. He could definitely get his money's worth in one sitting. How much farther? Ethan asked between bites of bread. Leroy, who had caught his breath by now, replied, at the speed we were going, we should reach our destination by tomorrow evening. Ethan nodded. Oh, that's not too bad. Not far at all. Ethan, did you not hear what this much just said? He said at the speed we were going, Ryan mumbled through a mouthful of food. Yeah, I heard him. We'll just keep moving after we finish eating, right? Ethan was a bit confused by Ryan's tone. Ethan, can you really keep running? Leroy asked, still looking exhausted despite having recovered somewhat. Ethan frowned, wondering if he'd missed something. He checked his internal energy reserves, his stamina was still full and his energy pool was barely depleted. Cautiously, he asked, is there a problem? The 3 siblings stared at him like he was some kind of monster. Never mind. I can't keep running. My energy's almost gone and it'll take at least a few hours to recover. From here on out, we'll have to move at a normal pace, Leroy said, looking defeated. It was frustrating enough that Ethan was faster, but now it turned out he had a much larger energy reserve too. It was only then that Ethan noticed the small sprout inside him, stretching from his core up to the crown of his head. The 2 tiny leaves at the top had disappeared. Sitting down, Ethan focused his mind and entered his mindscape. In the center of the island in the middle of the lake, he saw a small, translucent tree with a lush, green canopy. Ethan realized this must be the effect of reaching level 45. The tree was no longer just a sprout with a couple of leaves. Now he could clearly see all the leaves slowly absorbing the soul energy within the mindscape. This energy flowed down the trunk and into the island beneath the lake. Outside the mindscape, the energy released by the tree's branches was what fueled Ethan's abilities. His body also naturally absorbed energy from the environment, which the tree then absorbed and sent upward. Inside the mindscape, the energy was transformed into droplets that fell from the leaves and dissipated into the surroundings. The sapling had created a perfect cycle within Ethan's body. The only downside was that the tree still looked fragile. Aside from the small canopy inside the mindscape, there were no other branches or leaves. The trunk outside the mindscape almost looked like roots. Let's get moving. Ethan's internal inspection was interrupted by a tap on his shoulder. He opened his eyes to see Evelyn standing beside him. The 3 siblings had already packed up and shouldered their backpacks. Leroy's backpack, which had been passed to Evelyn earlier, was now with Ryan. Seeing Ethan awake, Leroy took the lead again, heading south. If you weren't carrying these backpacks, could you move faster? Ethan asked, stopping Ryan. Huh? Yeah, I could probably double my speed, Ryan replied, confused. Good. Ethan took Ryan's backpack, then grabbed Evelyn's as he passed her. When he caught up to Leroy, he handed over all 3 backpacks. Ryan and Evelyn watched in confusion from behind. Ryan muttered under his breath, damn, Ethan's trying to kill the dog. Leroy, with his sharp hearing, shot Ryan a glare. If you want access to fast updates or the full novel in high-quality audio, Contact me now and buy. I offer over 300 complete audiobooks from Pocket FM, Webnovel, Audible, and more. No locked episodes, no subscriptions. Just one-time payment via PayPal or Ko-fi. Message me directly on Telegram or WhatsApp, or check out the full list of available novels on Discord. Start listening to your next favorite audiobook today.